Hello, welcome to the world of YouTube, or rather, the world of swag. Now, I want to do a review on some items that I purchased this week. And the first item I want to do a review on is called the Oracle of the Goddess. It's both the book and the card set. I'm not sure because it's got quite a bit of glare here. And yeah, this was interesting. So let's review. I want to show some of the cards that are inside of this wonderful, wonderful item here. I found this to be interesting. It says Revelations, Reflections, and Rites of Passage. The Oracle of the Goddess, from the Great Goddess to you. I turn it around. This is the deity Aphrodite, or Aphrodite. It says Goddess of affection, love, laugh, and enjoy the moment. Enjoy all forms of creativity. Don't worry, be charming. Take a vacation from logic, worry, believe what you're hearing, enjoy the ecstasy and eminence from the meeting of two lovers. An existing relationship must renew this heady excitement or its danger of failing. This is the card for Aphrodite, also known as Venus, or the goddess of love. Then we have Rami Kumu. It says, draw the strength to do what must be done from knowing you are right in this matter. Feel worthy, respect yourself. If you want others to respect you, do not second guess your first impulse. Take the initiative. Do not stop until the goal is realized. Proceed without delay. Let no one shake your faith in yourself and avoid violence and cruelty. Romi Kumu, the deity. Oh, it's another thing at the bottom. The statement is, get your way. The other card prior to that had a different message at the bottom. And that is, think affectionately. That was interesting. These are like a lot of unique decks. This one is Lakshmi. It's the goddess of wisdom. The other one was the goddess of willpower. I noticed some other things that's on these cards I didn't see at first. Okay. So this says, any theory about life must help us live better when we put it into practice. Discover what you really believe and live by it. Be honest with yourself and others. Demand equal directness from all. A positive outlook attracts good fortune. An open mind enables you to see or create opportunities others would miss. Beyond enlightened, call this luck. It's the goddess of wisdom. At the bottom, it says, think honestly. The next card is Hecate. And it says, goddess of mysteries. It says, think excessively. It says, things now are not what they seem. Motives, beliefs, and information must be kept secret. There can be no sign of what is really going on. What will it take to accomplish your goal without interference? You too may be the target of seduction. Passion may be or may try and overrule logic. So be aware of enticing involvements you may later regret. As it says, think seductively. Think seductively. I like these cards already. I cannot pronounce this. Taiwan. That's what it looks like, but I'm going to turn around and let you see it yourself. It says the goddess of duality, her home. It says, listen to others. At this time, the answer lies outside of your experience. There is no shame in seeking the advice of others. They may be trusted friends, relatives, professional counselors, or you may find what you seek in books or other artistic forums for preserving knowledge. Recognize truth whenever you encounter it, inside yourself or others. It's a great card. I like the colors too. Passively, goddess of endurance, her head, think unbiasedly. Look beyond appearances to see things as if they really are. Do not accept as fact cultural egotism and prejudices. Many accepted attitudes about the roles of men and women today are distorted. Female and male must be equal. The effects of false ideals are numerous and insidious. Root them out of your life. Point them out in the thinking of others. Okay? I like that. Divyana, her home, established security. A solid foundation is necessary to attain your goal. There must be a safe haven from which to operate. Then do only what makes you and others truly secure. Mature and protect yourself so that whom you love and help are also strengthened. Help must be asked for and given only as it is needed, or true growth will not take place. And then there's this card. Some wonderful, wonderful colors and artwork. Goddess of communication, by the way. These cards are color coded too. I'm not going to go through, I think it's like 40 something cards. It says bright. It's the goddess of communication. This is for the heart, and it says feel changeable. It says now is not the time to know or say precisely how you feel. Uncertainties purpose can only be learned in hindsight. Self-knowledge and growth require the confronting of confusion. The craziness you feel will lead to needed reevaluation. Take heart and know that every seeker of wisdom often experiences challenge of indecision. The card is called Bright. Okay. Just feel challenge. Freya, her head, think creatively. Artfully devise amusements and improvements you love. Have fun, give life to something that has never been. Think romantically. Appearances are vital now. Style is important as substance. Acting dramatically, showing graciousness, and displaying affection may seem too demanding now, but will increase your resources greatly in the long run. This is Freya. She is a deity, spiritual deity. Artemis. We all have heard that name in Greek mythology. This is the goddess of discernment. In mythology, Artemis was always a male. But anywho, pursuing long-range goals does not justify ignoring the details that are essential to achieving them. Work your plan one day at a time. Take nothing for granted. Expect neither spectacular results nor perceptible changes. A warm-up period is necessary. Focus on practical matters such as health, food, exercise, hygiene, and good habits. Artemis. Skip that one. Atlantia. This deals with the heart. It says feel detachment. This is the goddess of the unexpected. Emotional detachment is essential now. Sorrow and anger can arise when the negative effects of a situation are fully realized. Peace begins where your expectations end, for expectations are unreasonable. See yourself from afar, watching lovingly as you act and react. Then you will eliminate the good. Always when you eliminate the bad. So this is the card of detachment. Detachment. I'm just trying to choose some that really, really stick out. It's a lot of cards. They're beautiful. Here's another Hecate card. I'm not going to read it though. Just make big changes. I guess the bottom part is really the summary. Summarizes the overall outcome. And your Zuli is, I think, cheerfully. Here's another one from Atlantia. And it says, try something new. Try something new. I'm not going to go all through these cards, but I definitely wanted to, I don't know, just do a quick review. Because these are beautiful cards. Very, very beautiful. I like a lot of beautiful, unique items. Just to show you what that looks like. This is a Hecate card. It says feel renewed. Yeah. Atlantia. Think freely. So anyway, do a quick review of the book. And I like the artwork of this item. I like the packaging of the item. This is actually the book. The book. The Oracle of the Goddess. Yeah. That. And even the artwork on the inside it's pretty interesting. Very scenic. Very scenic. The book has about oh, wow, this is interesting. This is a book that doesn't have page numbers. Never seen a book like that before. Doesn't have page numbers, but you know, it tells something different about each deity. And I also noticed that each deity belongs to a different culture. I think that's interesting. It has a few pages in it, but it was well put together. This is almost look like a children's book, but it isn't. It's a beautiful book, though. might be something I might either wind up regifting to someone. I might put it up for resale. And I like the way that, it has yellow ribbon. Yellow is a significant color when it comes to spirituality. But this is how it's closed. And like this. It's a beautiful book. Beautiful book. Something I didn't mention. I bought this game right here. It's actually a game called The New Moon, which is from the Twilight Saga, the movie. It's actually a board game. I bought this as a gift for a loved one. I haven't seen it yet, but this is going to be for Christmas. Yes, we're in summer. Look at this. These decals are not really. Let me see if I took it out. What is this? I don't know. It's made out of metal though. It's heavy. Yeah, it's really nice. I can't say what this is really. Oh, it kind of reminds me of a coat of arms of some sort. There's a silver one, and there's another one. It's made out of a material that's similar to brass. Reminds me of a coat of arms of some sort of way. I can hold it like this. Turn it to the side. It's real metal. So I'm assuming that these might be board pieces. And this may be like a 2-player thing. I'm not sure. This right here is the board itself. Look at that. And then this folds down this way. Okay. Trying to get all of this in here. It's a beautiful board. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful item. I don't know. I bought it as a gift for my son. But then again, I don't know. He's a quarter of a century old, so he might feel he's too grown for this. So who knows? Maybe I might auction this off. But we'll see. So that's the board. Very, very beautiful board. Instructions. Cards. I don't know. I guess this is each individual actor in the series. And it's a storyline attached to each of the cards. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. There are some more board pieces. Instead of the metal ones, these are plastic and it has dice in it. Okay. Notepad, I guess, to keep score. Oh, wow. even more interesting storyline, cards of the storyline. Can't complain about that. This is an awfully big box. Is there anything up under here? No. It's just the box. But that's fine. That's fine. I'll contact my son and just ask him. If he doesn't like it, then I'll quickly repurpose it, sell it, whatnot. But this is a beautiful this is Cullen Crest Pieces. This is actually a family game. Very interesting. And another book that I bought. It's about medical laws and ethics. There's quite a few things in here that I thought was alarming. Okay. Like, talks about ethics. Ethics is how a person should act, behave, what they should do, codes of morality, actually. And I was reading this, and like, say for example, it says it's something called the prudent person rule. And what is that? Well, it says the prudent person rule, also called the reasonable person standard, means a healthcare professional, usually a physician, must provide information to a patient that a reasonable, prudent person would want before he or she makes a decision about treatment or refusal of treatment. In general, a reasonable, prudent person would want to know the following. 1, a diagnosis. 2, the risk and potential consequences of the treatment, excluding any remote or improbable outcomes. This information should include the success and failure rates of the physician and his or her institution. Now that's interesting because a lot of hospitals, a lot of physicians, they don't give a diagnosis. A lot of times they will do a procedure under exploratory, under the guise of it being exploratory. In other words, trying to find out the cause or the root of an issue that's unknown. They don't always tell you the risk. What they do is throw a piece of paper in front of your face and say, well, you have to sign these papers in order for us to treat you. You understand that this is a teaching hospital and that each physician is an independent contractor, can't hold the hospital liable for the actions of the physician, nurses, whatever, all this nonsense that doesn't make any sense, it seems to go, it's very contradictory to what this book is saying about the law. And this is in Ohio, and it even gives examples about Ohio. Okay, it says the expected benefits of treatment and procedure. I've never had anything discussed like that with me when I've gone to the doctor for anything, especially a major surgery, and I've had several. Potential alternative treatments. Never had that discussion. And the hospital that I've gone to, Cleveland Clinic, University Hospitals of Cleveland, Marymount Hospital, St. Vincent Charity Hospital, what's that? Mount Sinai, when it was open, it's closed, thank God, because they were ratchet. St. Luke's Hospital, Lakewood, Metro Health. Everything isn't cracked up what it seems. It's interesting that Cleveland Clinic is said to be a hospital, or the second hospital um, with the highest standard of quality of care. I really don't understand how they got that, because if you ever go to Cleveland Clinic, or maybe it just depends on your insurance too. If you have like the top of the line of insurance, your outcome, your experiences are different. If you're like middle class or anything below that, you're not going to do so well. For a hospital, it's supposed to be operating as a non-charitable up under a 503c. They are very, very much a for-profit business. I don't even understand how they even got the title of being a teaching facility, a non-charitable, charitable organization, when they're anything but that. Who are they charitable to? Themselves? I see them building a lot of new hospitals, making amendments to buildings already standing, slapping their names on everything. But I've yet to see anything that they've actually accomplished to really claim the title that they're claiming. And I don't even know who is giving them these titles, because it clearly isn't factual. If you ever call Cleveland Clinic for anything, they have a process in which you tell a complete stranger, when you're just trying to make an appointment, you have to be very specific to what you believe your medical diagnosis is before they even put you with a doctor, instead of just making an appointment, asking you, what type of doctor are you trying to make an appointment with, or can you give me just a brief synopsis of your symptoms? No, they want to know exactly all of your symptoms. And then when you go to the doctor acts like they don't even know what the hell you're there for. The question is, well, why are you here? Why do you have someone answering the phones asking personal questions and they're not relaying this information to you? If I'm giving them personal information, then when I call you, you should be able to address the reason that I'm calling, you being a doctor. Or I go to a doctor's office, I've gone through the process of explaining personal information to a receptionist that then forwards this to the office of the actual doctor. The doctor sends out papers that you have to fill out, and it's asking you, what are your elements, your ailments, your family history? And then you submit this information, and then when you go in front of the doctor, they too lazy to read the information, too lazy to review your chart. They want you to tell them word for word verbatim what your problem is. My insurance is paying you. You're the doctor. Why am I telling you anything? I tell you the basics of what I'm feeling or not feeling, or what seems unbalanced. You should be doing everything that you can to determine what my diagnosis is. And you shouldn't have to look on Google, considering that, you're a hospital, you're making $400,000, if not more, a year. But you're relying on another doctor, student doctors, to come up with a diagnosis. And even a lot of times, if you go in there with symptoms for one thing, but they find what's actually wrong with you, but you didn't say what that specific symptom was for that specific condition that they actually found, they will tell you, or let me rephrase that, they will tell other employees, they will say, well, okay, we found this. Did you tell this patient about this diagnosis? They will say, no, they didn't come in here for that. They didn't complain about that. So we're not going to share that information. I've heard that a lot of times. I've heard it twice in my healthcare. There are other people. Let me rephrase. There are other people of color, African American, melanated, whatever, that have experienced this, unfortunately, by the hands of other doctors that are ethnic, not specifically African American or African at all, but up under certain race groups, there are considered special interest or ethnic. Okay. So here's another thing. It says the prognosis if no treatment is received. They don't really do that either. They'll turn around and mildly state that something is wrong. They'll even go through the process of starting a surgery, see a problem. If you're melanated, they're not going to mess with it. They'll just say, okay, I found this. No action was taken. Besides what we found, everything else is normal. A person that has no melanin in their skin, they would have treated that situation, would have either removed or would have treated it with some type of medicine or would have done something surgical or whatever to eradicate the root of that issue. That is the difference between the care that's received for people that are considered minority and depending on what minority class they are versus someone who is not considered a minority at all. The care is extremely different. If you go back to the Tuskegee Institute experiments, those experiments are still taking place in Metro Health Hospital, Cleveland Clinic Hospital, University Hospital, St. Vincent Charity Hospital. It's a hospital on McCracken Road, Marymount Hospital. I can say this. I actually used to work there. I used to work at all these hospitals when I was younger. I used to work as a security guard at all of them. I've worked as an STNA at all of them. I've also held other positions that, allowed me to have some inside information that's not really known to the public. And I know some people who work there now, nurses, doctors, or whatnot, not involved in my care per se, but they share things, things that they don't like about their job that they see. And I also say this when I worked at Cleveland Clinic as worked in environmental services. This was like earlier on in my employment endeavors. Oh boy, I tell you, a lot of doctors there are not clean. I've definitely cleaned a lot of offices, personal, private offices of doctors, and they are nasty. I mean, to the point of, we're talking about bathrooms that are not open to the public. They're not even for other employees. These are bathrooms that are specifically for physicians or a particular physician in a particular office. And I've cleaned feces off of walls. They're real nasty. These people are nasty. And a lot of times you'll see people go in a room, like say, for example, if there is a biohazard sign outside of a patient's room, normally it's an indication that this is a person that is deemed contagious. I've seen them, you have to put on your personal protective gear, mask and everything, be fully covered. I've seen them go in a room, take the chart in the room. Normally the chart is on the outside of the room. They go in the room. They're touching the patient, and they're wearing gloves. Sometimes they're wearing gloves. I went to school for medical assistant. Like I said, I also took an STNA class, became state tested and all this other stuff. I can promise you, a lot of times the doctor will go in the room. If you pay attention, when they enter the room, they don't even always wash their hands. They might wash their hands when they leave, maybe. but they do not always wash their hands when they first enter the room before they touch you, and then put on gloves. And then when they're done doing whatever that they do, they'll take the gloves off and shake your hand and walk right out the room and go right on to the next patient. They're supposed to enter the room, introduce themselves, not touch you though, introduce themselves, lather up with some soap. Do this for like 10 seconds, all of this. Get up under the nails and everything. And then put their hands up under the sink. Completely dry their hands, because if they touch you, touch surface of anything, a wall, desk, anything, touch you, you're already contaminated. Okay. A lot of times they don't always change like the little, it's not always sheets and stuff on the bedding. Sometimes it's like that little parchment paper that they pull out or whatnot. It's almost like tissue paper, and then pull it out over the bed. It's not even a bed really. It's more like, when you go to have an exam, it's like a, exam table, rather, with the stirrups and stuff. They don't always sanitize that either. I watch a lot of stuff that they do, but I worked in the hospital before. I got medical books. I have a son who just graduated with a bachelor's degree in health information systems, which is his major, and registered nursing is his minor. Okay. And a lot of the stuff that he used, besides, what the school that he attended provided, a lot of stuff that I already had that covered nursing, covered diseases, pharmacology, all kinds of stuff. Books on diagnosis, diagnosing diseases and stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff that that's going on in these hospitals, and it's not okay. It's not okay. So let's get back to this. It says, an acceptable standard of care is followed. Nothing that a lot of these hospitals do is acceptable. Especially, if you don't have the highest end of insurance, you are definitely getting not substandard, but below substandard quality of care. It says the cost including the amount of expected pain. Nope. A lot of times they're not going to tell you that. They're going to say, we can't tell you that. It has to be assessed after the fact. So I don't even know why people write books like this, because a lot of things sound good on paper, but in real life, in the real world, it just does not apply. Now, here's another thing. It says the statute of limitations. The statute of limitations refers to the period of time that a patient has to file a lawsuit. The court will generally not hear a case that is filed after the time limit has run out. The time limit varies from state to state, but typically this is 1 to 3 years. The only exception is that there is no statute of limitation for murder or some other criminal cases. One of the purposes of the statutes is to prevent potential plaintiffs from sitting on their rights while memories surrounding the controversy grow dim or witnesses die or move away. In addition, the statutes allow potential defendants to go on with their lives without worry about a lawsuit that could be filed relating to some long time ago occurrence. The statute of limitations, the time period, however, does not always start running at the time of treatment. It begins when the problem is discovered or should have been discovered, which may be sometime after the actual treatment. This is known as the discovery rule. In Teeters versus Curry, the plaintiff sued her doctor, alleging that as a result of Dr. Curry's negligence in performing surgery to sterilize Teeters, she gave birth to a premature child with severe complications several years later. Teeters brought in an action for malpractice. Curry pleaded the statute of limitations. The court found in favor of the defendant, Curry. However, Teeter successfully appealed, and the case was remanded back to the lower court. The court adopted the discovery doctrine, under which the statute does not begin to run until the injury is or should have been discovered. Teeter versus Curry, 518 S.W.2D, 512, Tennessee, 1974. This by far is the most absurd, ridiculous law that I have ever heard. Because trust and believe, if you owe a hospital bill, the law also says that if a debt isn't paid within 7 years, that the hospital or any business has to write it off as a loss. And 9 times out of 10, they recoup some money from that anyway. 1 second, my alarm's going off. Okay, so back to what I was saying. They are able to recoup money from that because a lot of times they sell their debts to debt collectors for a minimum fee, and then debt collectors normally call and harass citizens or whatnot for money, whether it's actually owed or not, real or imagined. If you damage property of police or whatever, after 3, 4 years, 7 years, does it go away? No, you're still liable. So, it's interesting how they have these rules of what you can and can't do, how doctors, certain types of businesses, normally people that are definitely affiliated with the government in some type of way because they both make money together, they are awarded protections and benefits that the average person is not. And they put the statutes of limitations in effect to really discredit you, because even if you file within a reasonable amount of time, they have all types of laws and loopholes that no matter what you do, they're going to always favor a doctor, even when a doctor is negligent. And a lot of them are. A lot of them don't even know their craft. A lot of them, do the bare minimum in their jobs. But I do think it's interesting. I went to school for barbering and cosmetology. It used to surprise me how you have some doctors, lawyers, professional people, politicians, whatever, come in to get a haircut. They want you to rush and do a job. Well, only get 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Can you get me in and out of here? They want you to rush and be perfect with what you do. But when you go to their place of employment, they throw you off on someone else. They could never answer any questions. You only count when it's time to vote, and they need your vote to stay in power. But you're really not that important on their schedule. And a lot of times they don't do their jobs right. They make a lot of mistakes. A lot of government employees, city, county, federal, state, all types of blunders. The excuse is, oh, we're human. Oh, we make mistakes. Oh, well, information was omitted. Oh, it was just a clerical error. You omit information on a federal legal document, it's a felony. Some things might be a misdemeanor, but it's really a felony. You can go to prison for that and be penalized financially for that. But, I'm just saying, they have all these rules that benefit everyone else but you. So my advice to people is, whenever you are faced with a situation dealing with a particular type of professional entity, and if you encounter issues and those issues can't be resolved by their ethics, code of ethics and procedures that are put in place to try to remedy a situation, which 9 times out of 10 it does not. They have an ombudsman person that really works in the best interests of the hospital and the doctor, not you. So don't, excuse me, don't be fooled in believing that they're looking out for you, because they're not. A lot of times you have a complaint, they'll always say, well, this has been resolved, or the person that you have a complaint against says something else, so then it becomes your word against theirs, and they're going to always side with their own people. So let's see. Then here's another one. It says employees' duty to carry out orders. Healthcare employees have a duty to interpret and carry out orders of their employer or physician. They are expected to know basic information concerning procedures and drugs that may be used. The nurse or other healthcare professional has a duty to clarify the physician's orders when they are ambiguous or erroneous. Oftentimes, they don't do that at all. I don't know if it's laziness. I don't know. They don't do that. It says if the procedure or drug appears to be dangerous for the patient, the healthcare professional has a duty to decline to carry out the orders and should immediately notify the physician. In the case of Clive versus Lund, a hospital was held liable for the death of a patient because a nurse failed to check the patient's vital signs every 30 minutes as ordered by the physician. The nurse also failed to notify the physician when the patient's condition became life-threatening. And this is the case of Klein with a C versus Lund, 31 California Appellate 3D 755, year 1973. Let me see. Okay. Scope of practice. Every employee in a medical setting must clearly understand and work within the scope of practice for his or her discipline. Scope of practice refers to the activities of healthcare professionals allowed to perform as indicated in their licensure, certification, and/or training. This means that a nurse can legally, through a licensure, provide care and treatment to patients that a medical assistant is not licensed or certified to perform. For example, in some states, a nurse may be permitted to renew a medical prescription with physician's knowledge and authority to a pharmacy over the telephone. A medical assistant is not licensed to do this. A trained and certified medical assistant can draw a sample of blood from a patient and perform certain tests on the sample, such as a blood count. However, a nurse aide is typically not qualified or certified to perform these procedures. Since it is imperative that employees understand and practice within the guidelines of their profession. However, a physician employer also has a responsibility to instruct members of the healthcare team to perform activities that are within their respective scope of practice. Now, this is interesting because you have a lot of doctors that, like, say, a general medical practitioner has also been trained in gynecology, urology, different aspects of parts of your body, endocrine system, lymphatic system, circulatory system, musculatory system, diseases and disorders of the blood, all types of things. But when they go for their licenses, they can be specific to which field they want to go to, or they can just choose general. But the fact that because of their training, and even with their license, but because of their training, they're able to cover more, a lot of them choose not to. Or they omit a lot of things, a lot of things that they do see, because it says they can run sample tests or practice, can take a sample of blood and run multiple tests off of it. All they need is one drop, and they can run like 10 tests off of that. They take vials, several vials of blood. Ask yourself, what are you really doing with that? Because all of that blood is not being used for tests. Some of that blood is being sent to different federal and state agencies, and they're putting it in a database, tracking your DNA, you know, running it across other databases to see if it matches any crime scenes. FYI, some of them are taking your blood, they're sending it to other labs, trying to find out the origins of your family history. That's why you have sites like Ancestry.com or whatever. And, you know, they're asking people to send in their DNA, but they already have this information and they can trace your ancestry, but they're still not even giving you truthful information about all the different regions in which your DNA is derivative from. They're not giving you all that information. They got, you know, break this stuff down in different ways to keep getting you to pay for stuff because they're just trying to enrich themselves. So it's just like you have doctors that will treat you for one condition, but they've ran tests. They see maybe 3 or 4 things wrong with you, but they're only going to treat you for one thing. And then what they treat you with is so toxic that it winds up giving you 10 to 20 different side effects. Is far worse than the one thing that they decided to treat you for. And now you're worse off than you were in the beginning. Far worse off with side effects. You know, like say for example, I had a potassium deficiency. Okay, so I get B12 shots or whatnot because I can't eat bananas. I'm allergic to it. You know, certain pills and stuff I can't take. It won't stay on my stomach. So I get B12 injections, you know, some other stuff, plasma transfusions and stuff like that. Okay. They wanted to give me some type of medicine in pill form, and I read the side effects. This particular medicine that they prescribed for me would have weakened my bones to the point where they would become brittle had I taken it. This medication also had the potential to interfere with my eyesight and could cause me to go blind. Okay. It could also affect my hair and make my hair fall out. Can cause my skin to be hypersensitive to the sun. You know, it's just a lot of things that they give you that, you know, once you put certain things in your system, it completely affects your DNA. It changes a chemical balance, and sometimes it just can't be undone. You have to be careful with these doctors because they're not in the business to help assist you in getting well. They're in the business of making money, which means keeping you sick. A lot of people don't want to believe that, but it's the honest to goodness truth. A lot of people have died trusting doctors. You know, I find it very interesting that out of all of the diseases known to man, people of African descent have the highest rate of every disease known to man. And people wonder why. Colored people don't trust doctors. And the interesting thing is a lot of these doctors, like I said, they are ethnic themselves. You know, they come from other countries. They're not black, but they're not Caucasian either. But they come to America with racist cultural views. Some of them are from a caste system that looks down upon people of color. So if they have this attitude in their own country, is it really safe to assume that it's going to be different in the workplace? Risk management. Let's talk about that. Is a practice used to control and minimize the incidence of problem behavior that might result in injury to patients and employees, and ultimately a liability for the physician or employer. A key factor in risk management is to identify the problem behaviors and practices in an organization such as a hospital or medical office. A plan of action is to put into practice to eliminate these problem behaviors. Risk management factors include environmental issues such as wet floors, improper grounding of electrical equipment, poor security. Security is poor in hospitals. And a lot of them, instead of them treating patients like they are in third world countries going through Interpol checkpoint, they need to really watch some of the people that are in the environment in which they share employment. Since risk factors that affect employees include poor record keeping, they do that a lot. It's a lot of information that they don't put in the record, and it's done deliberately. And then some of the things that they do put in there, they redact it so the patient can't see their personal notes, opinions, prognosis, or whatnot. I feel if you're confident to make statements, no matter what they are, you shouldn't be rejecting nothing because you're receiving payment to provide a service. So why should you have a right to keep what you say and think regarding a patient a secret? Or why should it only be shared among hospital staff and maybe governments? That doesn't make sense. If you got that much fear that you have to hide or redact what the heck you said, then you don't have no business in that profession, and you really don't have no business saying what you're saying, whatever that is. Okay, it says risk factors that inflict, like I said, poor record keeping and proper storage of drugs and needles. I've seen that a lot. Improper follow-up, patient care, horrible. Abandonment of patients, they do that a lot. Corrective actions for these factors are often addressed in updated policies and procedure books and they need to take their procedure books and throw it out the window, because half of the people from the higher administration to the lowest denominator, they don't follow that nonsense. And I've worked in a hospital. I still got books, handbooks up on mission statements, rules, procedures. I signed documents saying that I wouldn't reveal information while I was employed. That was over 20 years ago. It doesn't apply to me now. Again, we can talk about the statutes of limitations. So I can talk about what I want to talk about. I don't work there anymore. It's been more than 10 years. I'm not subject to that bull crap anymore. This is an interesting book. Physicians' rights. It says physicians have a right to select the patients they wish to treat. They also have a right to refuse service to patients. From an ethical standpoint, most physicians treat patients who need their skills. This is particularly true in cases of emergency. Physicians may also state the type of services they will provide, the hours their offices will be open, and where they will be located. The physician has a right to expect payment for all treatment provided, and a physician can withdraw from a relationship if the patient is non-cooperative or refuses to pay a bill when able to do so. They have all these rights, but you don't. So I say to anybody that has a profession in any capacity that encounters people who use their positions that are normally provide services that are required or that are definitely needed in order to sustain life and to stay healthy. When you encounter these type of people and they abuse their positions, if they ever come to your place or your field of expertise, use you something, they give you substandard something, return the favor. I say whatever is good for the goose is good for the gander. His professional practice responsibilities. Um, Here, now, let me go back to this. It says physician's responsibilities. Clearly, a physician's first responsibility is to be professionally competent, do not. While a physician has the right to accept or decline to establish a professional relationship with any person, once a relationship is established, the physician has certain responsibilities. For example, federal law and many state laws prohibit hospitals from giving physicians kickbacks of money or other benefits in return for referring patients. They get kickbacks. Don't believe that they don't. In 1994, I don't know what NME stands for. Um, Maybe it's New Mexico. I don't know. Psychiatric hospitals pleaded guilty for making unlawful payments to physicians in order to induce them to refer patients to their institutions. And said NME agreed to pay the federal government $379 million to settle the case, United States versus NME Psychiatric Hospitals Inc. Number 94. This is the case number 94-0268. Says the physician has many other responsibilities, including ethical ones. The American Medical Association has taken a leadership role in settling ethical standards for the behavior of physicians. I can't tell because I don't see it. I've never seen it. Professional practice responsibilities. Medical practice responsibilities include such commonplace routines as effective hand washing techniques before touching any patients. That is clearly not practice. And a lot of people can attest to that before or after seeing a physician. They do not always wash their hands. Sometimes they'll come in and put gloves on. Sometimes they'll come in, touch you, and don't wash their hands at all. While this may seem to be an issue that hardly needs to be stated, nevertheless, there are serious ethical, legal, and economic implications when healthcare personnel ignore these sensible routines. For example, a survey of over 900 hospitals cited in the Chicago Tribune reports that medical mistakes kill from anywhere from 44,000 to 98,000 Americans every year, according to the report. Many often preventative complications, such as post-operative infections, lead to more than 32,000 hospital deaths and more than $9 million in extra costs annually. One of the most serious complications of post-surgery sepsis, the bloodstream infections. Researchers believe that improved hand washing might reduce these rates of death. I feel that if you have gone through training and you've gone to the state and have received a license and a permit to do what you do, and through your schooling or education, college degree or whatever, you have a diploma and a degree. So there's no excuse. They need to stop giving these people, keep giving these people chances. When they mess up, you lose your license, it should be forever. You shouldn't be able to consult, practice, and nothing else. Now it says non-compliant and incompetent patient. Really? It says a patient who is non-compliant and is also incompetent presents a special concern for physicians and hospitals. Hospitalized patients who are non-compliant may discharge themselves against medical advice of their physicians, but also an incompetent patient poses a unique problem because he or she may not be able to understand the need for treatment and may even pose a threat to another person. In this case, the physician will submit an emergency application to a judge who can order an emergency hospital admission for the patient. Most states require within 72 hours a formal due process hearing be held. At this hearing, the patient's medical condition is evaluated along with the loss of any of his or her rights A decision may be made to either allow the patient to return home or continue to be hospitalized. Additional hearings are held as long as the incompetent patient is hospitalized. And you need to be very, very careful with that. And I say this because a lot of hospitals, these doctors get upset if you disagree with what they say. If you file a complaint, ask for a supervisor, they can falsely accuse you of making threats. They can falsely accuse you of being a danger to yourself and to staff when you're not. I've seen this done. I've even had this happen to me. Okay. Judges, you got to be careful with them too, because a lot of them abuse their positions. They can strip your rights away, and they do this a lot to people of color. There are so many people that have been wrongly accused, falsely accused of either being aggressive when they weren't, being accused of being threatening when they never were, being accused of posing a danger to themselves or society when they've done nothing to have such statements substantiated. And then their rights are taken away. Rights to bear arms, rights to perform certain duties, work at certain places can be denied, all because of false statements. And judges do it all the time, especially in Cuyahoga County. The course is full of criminals, and a lot of them wear robes, have gavels. Some of the police, I'm not saying all, but we do have a lot of rogue police officers in the state of Ohio. And it doesn't make a difference what municipality, what county, what state, not state, city. I mean, it's a worldwide epidemic where a lot of people are abusing the badge, abusing a gavel, abusing the courts, the laws, their positions. And, they have this Ohio Department of Disciplinary Counsel. It's nothing but a group of lawyers that went to school with the same judges, prosecutors, and attorneys that you complain about. They're all friends. So even the process of going through appeals of anything, Ohio Supreme Court of Appeals, it's a joke. Most of the judges there are criminals. These are people that are trained to review evidence. A lot of them practiced law before they became judges. So, they have been trained to, know when someone is lying, when someone is obstructing justice or whatever. But, everything's about a paycheck for them. They will deliberately deny or delay or continue cases because everything is all about money. It's all about, okay, well, you need to file a motion for this. That motion may be $75. It might be $250. Okay? And then they always encourage you to get an attorney. You can go into debt and still not win a case. Having an attorney doesn't really guarantee you anything. It doesn't really benefit you either because they're all friends. They make backdoor deals all the time. And sometimes it's never in your benefit. They're going to make, put you in debt at least $50,000 before you might even have an outcome of anything because they're trying to get money. And everything is done on behalf of the state. I call most employees at the courthouse, justice center, whatever, I call them whores of the state. And when I say whores, I'm not speaking specifically of females either. I'm talking about period. And if you look at the definition, it's basically a person that will do anything for money, sell services for money, and I don't mean like, a commerce type situation. We're talking about people that will sell a service, require money for a service when they know what they're doing is unethical when they can clearly see that uh, a felony has been committed, a misdemeanor has been committed either by one of their own or between the two parties or whoever the parties that go before a judge, a jury, that go inside of a court and you give exhibits. So what? If you don't know how to properly set up your exhibits or whatnot, as long as you come with evidence and they're trained to look through things, they're trained, like I filed motions to do discoveries and was denied. Why would you deny me due process? I've contacted the disciplinary council, of Office of Professional Standards and Ethics. It's a joke. I've contacted the FBI. If a judge or a public official is committing a crime or felony, you're supposed to call the FBI. A lot of times they won't touch it. Department of Justice, they don't touch their own people. So you really have to be careful when you're dealing with the judicial system in any form, because they have all these laws, these rules and statutes in place. None of them really apply. A lot of things are just on paper. And the only time that they apply any rules or laws is when they're applying it towards you, a citizen. They don't apply it towards themselves. They feel, think, and act above the law. They feel that they're above the law. They commit felonies and homicides unjustified all the time, and they are hardly ever punished for or held accountable for anything that they do. But back to this book. I got this book called The Medical Law and Ethics. Really, books like this should be trashed. It shouldn't exist, because a lot of the things don't exist, and if it does, it's never for a person of color. It's always for a person that is non-ethnic, which doesn't make sense. Okay, here this. It says restriction on HIV-infected healthcare workers. Public health concerns about HIV-infected healthcare employees has always been an issue. Several ethical questions have been presented. It says, should healthcare workers, especially those who perform invasive procedures such as drawing blood specimens, be tested for HIV? Absolutely. It says, should HIV-infected healthcare workers inform their patients that they are positive for a virus? Absolutely. Why? Because you have to tell a healthcare professional if you have any type of STDs, whether it's infectious or not, because they want to protect themselves. So why shouldn't you have that same right? If they feel that it's too much to reveal their status, then they should not be in the position to do what they're doing. And this is also true for cosmetologists and barbers. When I was in school, I read that there's a law that says that any person who is performing hair services who normally has a communicable disease or a disease that is infectious, and it could be contagious, knowingly, where you can infect someone and you perform a service anyway, that's a felony. So I don't give a darn about a doctor. If you nasty, if you have issues like that, then maybe the only type of patients you should be seeing is the patients that have the same issues that you have. But that's just an opinion. Just an opinion. So should the practice of HIV infected workers be restricted? Absolutely. Anything that deals with blood, they should not be. And it shouldn't be dealing with food either. And I'm just saying, because you can scratch yourself, cut yourself, whatever, and you come in contact with food and other things. I don't care what nobody's saying. If certain things could be passed through saliva, mucous membranes, blood, or whatever, it can definitely be passed through food, sweat, saliva. Don't let them dummies tell you that it can't. A lot of these healthcare professionals and these medical journals are full of lies when it comes to telling the public what they're doing. Just remember, they're doing all kinds of experiments. Like, you had these children and teenagers that was dropping dead, that play sports. They were healthy athletes or whatnot, just dropping dead on a track and field, football fields and stuff. They try to say it was heat exhaustion. No, it's experimentation that they've been doing. Or you had these children that was exposed to staph infections in these schools. Was it an outbreak per se? No. Somebody in the healthcare industry has entered the school system and has touched something in certain areas to deliberately infect certain people. Certain things like this is not a coincidence. Call this dangerous conspiracy theories, but it's a true fact. Says, as patients and consumers, it is relatively easy to say, for us to answer yes to these three questions. For example, physicians have the ethical obligation that requires that they do no harm to patients. Further, physicians are obligated to discuss information to their patients that a reasonable person would require in order to make an informed decision about their own testing for the virus. Most patients would certainly want to know if their physician or healthcare worker is infected with HIV. A Newsweek poll have found that 90% of their readers responding to the poll agree that all physicians and dentists should be required to tell their patients if they are HIV infected. The American Medical Association recommends that HIV positive healthcare workers should not perform invasive procedures that pose a risk to the patients, and that physicians should always err on the side of protecting the patient. The American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons recommend that HIV positive surgeons not perform procedures that involve the placement of internal devices such as hip replacements, wires, or even blind probing of tissue. Probably the strongest statements come from the federal and state medical boards, which states that it would be a professional misconduct for healthcare workers to perform invasive procedures if they do not know their HIV status. Furthermore, the Federation recommends that all state boards require all names of HIV-infected healthcare workers be reported to the health. They should be reported to everybody, just like the Department of Health. If you are riding around with the nasties, anybody that can access the Department of Health database knows all your business. So why should they have any privacy? You don't. There are strong arguments for ignoring confidentiality issues and reporting HIV positive workers if their actions put patients' health at risk. For example, surgeons, gynecologists, dentists, phlebotomists, surgical nurses, and emergency medical technicians all take part in invasive procedures in which HIV could be transmitted. In addition, removing the HIV positive healthcare worker from close patient contact could ultimately provide protection from patients' infections and diseases such as tuberculosis. There are valid arguments against requiring mandatory testing and restricting the activities of HIV positive healthcare workers. For example, healthcare workers have a right and freedom from discrimination and to privacy. No, they don't, because if you can refuse to perform services on a patient, that's a form of discrimination. So what makes you so special? It says, and patients clearly don't have a right to privacy because anybody, even from the person that makes an appointment that doesn't provide any healthcare services at all, has full access to patient records and all of their personal health information. And a lot of these people are the same people in the streets talking, telling people's business. I'm telling you, if you don't have any rights, they don't have any rights either. And if you know their info, let's put it in a database and share it, since that's what they feel they have a right to do. There are statistics that show that the risk of transmitting the HIV to another person is very low. I don't care. A risk is a risk, low or not. But anyway, let's go on to something else. It's like a whole chapter on that. I'm just flipping through the book, just going through certain pages, certain things I found that I found alarming. Like I read one part, it was saying that actually a person who provides care really has no obligation to provide medical assistance if they don't want to. Here it is, the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. The Uniform Anatomical Gift Act allows a person 18 years or older of sound mind to make a gift of any or all body parts for the purposes of organ transplantation or medical research. The statute includes two specific safeguards. For a physician who is not involved in the transplant must determine the time of death. Second, no money is allowed to change the hands for the organ transplantation. Why not? Because when they are doing the surgery, taking it out of your body, putting it in someone else's, they're making a lot of money. The money that they charge for services is ridiculous. And you got to be careful about that, because who's to say that anyone who goes on record with the state acknowledging or stating that they would donate an organ or their whole body. It's interesting how a lot of people coming up missing and dead that's on that list. And I'm not saying that the state's involved in that, but I'm not exactly ruling it out either. Somebody is making a real hefty profit off of organ donations. Okay, so it says questions frequently asked in advance directives to include the following. To whom should the advance directives be given? It says copies of advance directives should be given to the personal physician, close relatives, and a close friend. In addition, a copy should be placed in a medical chart if the patient is hospitalized on a nursing home. Where should the advance directives be stored? It should be kept with the patient's personal papers in a home or nursing home setting. It's not recommended that they are stored in a safe deposit box, and they will not be accessible in an emergency. How can an advance directive be changed or amended? Any revisions can be made by drawing through an outdated statement in the original document. After a revision is made, it should be dated and signed, and an amended copy should be given to the personal physician, family member, and friend. It says, can an advance directive be revoked? People can revoke their documents by destroying them and asking anyone holding a copy to do the same. Ideally, the request to destroy the advance directive should be sent in writing to all who hold a copy. It says, who does the law? It says, what does the law say about advance directives? A federal law, the Patient Self-Determination Act, PSDA, was passed in 1991. Congress has strongly supported a person's right to self-determination before becoming incompetent. However, a patient's request for assisted suicide will not be honored in any states except Oregon and Washington. Now you got to be careful with that too, because this act is just like power of attorney. Courts don't always honor them, and I know this firsthand. States don't always honor them. A lot of times people will play games and make you go to court and file motions and all this other stuff. Again, it's all about the state, the county, and the city, and then, the court's making money. So you got to be careful. Talking about rights of minors, you might as well forget this, because they really don't have rights. They don't. Patients' responsibilities. This consent crap is, it says patient responsibilities. In addition to the patient's rights, they also have certain obligations. Patients are expected to follow their physician's instructions. They must follow up. They must make a follow-up appointment to monitor their treatment and medication use if requested by the physician. Patients must be absolutely honest with the physician about such issues as past medical history, family medical history, and tobacco, drug, and alcohol use. Finally, patients um, and parents of minor children are expected to pay the physician for medical services. Why? Why do you want to know medical history? Because it doesn't make sense. A lot of times, and let me speak from the hospitals that I spoke of previously. Mount Sinai closed now. St. Louis Hospital, I think it might be closed now. Lakewood Hospital, Southwest General Hospital, Cleveland Clinic Hospital, Marymount Hospital, Metro Health Hospital, St. Vincent Charity Hospital. All these hospitals have all these directives. They want all your information, but every time you go to the doctor, you can even go see the same doctor again. They ask you the same questions that they ask every time. They hardly ever sit back and really review your medical history, even when you have provided it. It's all about in the moment of what they get right now. They don't care nothing about patients. That's particularly if you are a person of color. That's a true fact. They have all this stuff on paper and all these rules and laws. They don't hold up to nothing. The care is substandard. Even people who work in hospitals, some of their care, again, is substandard. And it's very, very few that actually acknowledge or recognize that. So there's exceptions to consent. It says medical tip, both express and implied consent should be informed consent. This means that patients must know or be informed about what they are providing consent for. I can promise you, a lot of times you sign a consent form, there are other things that are unwritten that they don't put in there. Like a lot of times they will give you forms and they have certain things that are empty, like spaces that are empty. They could be filled in later. When I black those out, they give me the papers back and tell me that I can't alter their document because they won't treat me. So this is common at Cleveland Clinic and the other hospitals I mentioned before. Says if the patient asks the physician not to disclose the risk, then the physician is not required to do so. A physician is not required to restore patients to their original state of health, and in some cases may be unable to do so. A physician may not be able to elicit a cure for every patient. A physician cannot guarantee a successful result of every treatment. The physician who believes the disclosure of risk may be detrimental to the patient is not required to disclose them. For example, if a patient has a severe heart condition that may worsen by the announcement of risk, the physician should not disclose the risk. Now, ain't that some bullshit? You're required to pay them. But if they decide they don't want to tell you something, you don't have a right to know. It just said it in this book right here. That's some bullshit. So the physician need not inform the patient about the risks that are commonly known. For example, physician need not tell patients that they could choke swallowing a pill. Refusal to grant consent. Adult patients who are conscious and considered to be mentally capable have a right to refuse any medical or surgical treatment. The refusal must be honored no matter what the patient's reasoning concerning about the successful procedure, lack of confidence in the physician, religious beliefs, or even a mere whim. Failure to respect the right or refusal could result in a liability for assault and battery. Oh, okay. In Eckerson and Dilgert, the hospital requested the court to authorize a blood transfusion. Over the patient's objection, the court held in favor of the patient who refused blood transfusion, even though the refusal could have resulted in the patient's death. It says the hospital and medical personnel have a responsibility to use reasonable care and protect the patient from touching or assault and battery when consent has not been granted. Interesting. You talk about critical thinking. If critical thinking was at play here, then half of the rules and policies that are put in place in hospitals and laws that protect healthcare professionals would not exist. If critical thinking skills were, you know, um, okay. Let me see. I'll say this statute limitations. Look at this. It says never completely obliterate any notation on a chart. It says if a chart note is placed or on an incorrect chart, cross through the notation with one line and state incorrect chart. Always add your name and after correction. It says it is poor technique to leave spaces on a chart so that another person can add statements later. Okay? And a lot of times you will find this, that there are spaces, and then you turn around and, in the beginning you might ask to see your chart, and you see your chart and, you don't see anything to cause alarm. And then later, years later, you turn around and get your chart, and then you see things that wasn't there before. They're always altering and tampering with things because they expect you to never see it or ask to see it again, and feel you'll be content and satisfied with the first time. This is true at Cleveland Clinic and university hospitals and others. Since while this may be done simply because another staff member was not ready to chart, it gives the appearance that information was added back into the chart at a later date in order to attempt to deceive. Deliberate attempts to alter a medical record, to fabricate medical record with someone else's name, or to lose a medical record can result in a defendant, such as a physician or hospital, losing a negligence case. In some of the cases, a physician or hospital had no knowledge that the record was being altered. However, under the principle of respondeat superior, an employer is held responsible for the employee's interaction. Some lawyers, especially after losing a case, have been known to go back several weeks later to request another copy of the medical records. They will check to see if the record has been altered in any way since the trial ended. In one case, an LPN was found not to be negligent in the first case, but was found guilty upon appeal when attorneys noted that the medical record had been changed after the trial ended, even though the LPN had not made any of the changes and was apparently not guilty of the original charges. Nevertheless, upon appeal, the original decision was overturned. The judge wonders why alter the record if you are innocent. They alter records all the time. Who is liable? Under the doctrine of respondeat superior, or let the master answer. It's an interesting choice of words. Let the master answer. Who's the master? So they got these slave words in here. Discussed in chapter 3, the employer is liable for the consequences of the employee's actions committed in the scope of employment. The employer may not have done anything wrong, yet is still liable. For example, if a medical assistant in a physician's office injures a patient while taking a blood sample, the physician employer can be liable for the action, even if the medical assistant was properly selected, well trained, suitably assigned to the task. Respondeat superior does not assign responsibility to anyone other than the employer. Therefore, the immediate supervisor, if he or she is not the employer of the medical assistant, it is not the responsible party. And it says the doctrine of the respondeat superior was implemented for the benefit of the patient, not the employee. It is not meant to protect the employee. Thus, the patient can sue both the physician and the employee. If both are found liable by the court, the plaintiff may seek to collect money from either party. However, the plaintiff cannot collect twice. The employer is not at fault but forced to pay. The plaintiff can turn around and sue the employee for the damages. That's good to know. So another thing they talk about, liability insurance, malpractice insurance, practicing defensive medicine. What is that? Unfortunately, many physicians find themselves in a position of practicing a type of medicine that will help to protect them from lawsuits. This is referred to as defensive medicine. It means that more than one test and procedures will be ordered for each patient in order to avoid a lawsuit. The result of this practice is twofold. The patient will have to undergo additional and often painful tests and procedures, and the cost of the health care will increase. In addition, the use of specialists by primary care physicians has greatly increased. Some medical specialties, such as orthopedics, obstetrics, are especially prone to litigation. The result is, in some parts of the country, there is now a lack of specialists such as obstetricians. Um, they treat babies because of the cost of their malpractice insurance has become too expensive. The use of specialists has also meant that in some cases there is a reduced relationship between the primary care physician and the patient, resulting in a greater propensity for patients to sue if displeased with their medical outcomes. Defensive medicine becomes problematic if a physician becomes reluctant to attempt some of the more risky yet potentially effective procedures for fear of a lawsuit. A more conservative approach might result in a poor outcome and even death of the patient. The research study was conducted to determine if a physician's behavior affected whether he or she um, would have a lawsuit filed against them. The result of this limited study showed that the physician in a hospital setting who took time to talk to patients in an unhurried manner, sit on the side of their bed, and even hold their hand while talking to them were almost never sued, even when there have been some unexpected problems. On the other hand, physicians who merely stood in the doorway and asked a patient how he was feeling and quickly walked away were much more prone to a lawsuit if the patient was dissatisfied with the outcome of his or her illness. Physicians are aware of the need to hire employees who are skilled in their professional duties, as well as able to project a warm, caring attitude towards their patients. In some cases, an unhappy employee will reflect negativity on their patient's attitude towards the physician, even if he or she is quite competent. While it is while it is usually a physician who practices defensive medicine, is often to be another healthcare professional who documents what has been done. Narrative documents that are performed one shift in either a hospital or nursing home does not always convey exactly what was done for the patient. For example, stating in a medical record patient required one-on-one monitoring is clearly inaccurate because it is not possible unless there is a person assigned to only that patient. If there is a once a month documentation, such as is commonly done in some nursing homes, the court may find that there is lack of monitoring and the patient because it appears that he or she was only monitored on that date. They lie all the time, falsify stuff. Oh my gosh, now they're talking. We're in a section where it's talking about laboratory technicians, dental assistants, medical assistants. They have more students practicing in these fields than they actually do people that are actually licensed. It's sad. Patients, assistants, physical therapists, pharmacists, paramedics, respiratory therapists. I mean, the people that actually get better care um, in these specialties are people that work for the post office, people who Our doctors themselves, people that have high-end insurance, they are the only ones that's reaping the benefits of any form or field of healthcare. Anyone that's middle class and below, they don't see it. Tort reform, malpractice reform, also referred to tort reform. It's a controversial issue. According to the National Conference of State Legislators, 32 states have passed reforms in which some of them limit an injured person's ability to sue. They do this because, like I said, the states are whores. They'll do anything for money. They can come after you for money. There's no statute of limitations on that at all. But they limit you not only on your ability to sue, but what you can sue for and how much you can get. How jacked up is that? Your state legislators, they full of it. So I'm just, I bought this. This was an interesting book. And they also, they got things in here that don't make sense. Talks about substance abuse, gathering evidence in cases of abuse, spousal abuse, signs of abuse, bullcrap. You have so many children that have been abused, have died at the hands of their parents, babysitters, daycare workers, whatever. Always there were signs. And medical professions, just like people who work in child care, and I know this because I took the county child care training and certification courses, barbering, cosmetology. They all require us to take classes on human trafficking, all this other nonsense. You have to go all through this nonsense, and it's a required course, but any of it is hardly applied by the people who require us to take this course. Is hardly enforced. Even if you report stuff, it's ignored. And then again, things depend on who you know. Equal Employment Opportunity Act, they might as well throw that out the door. Because there are some places I can't go into. This is my natural hair. Okay? I don't like heat in my hair. I'm not really a weave person. I'm a licensed cosmetologist. I'm a barber. But there are certain establishments where a person of color cannot wear their natural hair. It's considered unprofessional to certain groups and cultures and races. But yet, these same people get lip injections. That's not considered unprofessional. Breast implants. You can clearly see that they have body enhancements. A lot of them dressed extremely provocatively too. It's not considered unprofessional. If your hair isn't blonde, should you dye it blonde? So I'm just saying, contacts and all this other stuff. If a person can't wear their natural hair, then another person shouldn't be able to wear false lips, false breasts, false anything, false eyelashes, nothing. If it's not something that you're born with, if it's not in your natural state, no. You might as well tell a person that has curly hair that they can't straighten it because that's not natural. It shouldn't be professional. If a person can't wear their natural hair, then another person shouldn't be able to alter theirs. That's how I look at it. So if I ran a Fortune 500, 5,000 company, whatever, I would institute the same type of things that I'm subjected to on my applications. You know, if you want to ask family composition, or if you want to ask what ethnic group do I belong in, I take it a step further. You know, if a person said that they was African, I would want to know what specific region of Africa did you come from. If a person is Caucasian, I would want to know specifically what part of what country is your ancestry from. You can't say it's illegal because it's not. Most people that are of color or black that are in America, they're not actually black, they're mulatto. They're mixed with something, whether it's Caucasian or uh, Native American, they're mixed with something. Nobody that's born in America is 100% all African black. They're not. Um, but I would ask, you know, you say you was Caucasian, I want to know, where did you come from? Europe, what part of Europe? Germany? Uh, did you come from France? You know, where? Britain? Where? Where are you from? I would require the same type of information and knowledge that the state and the federal government requires of us. Um, you know, whatever I'm subjected to by an agency or a group or culture of people, I would subject those same people to the same things I'm subjected to in my place of business, residence or whatever. If I can't go into a building bearing a firearm, then a person who is in law enforcement, I don't care if they're on duty or not. If a crime is not in commission in my place of business, you will not be permitted to enter the premises with a firearm, period. You know, so I look at things like that. If I go to your job, federal employee, city, county, state, whatever, if I go to your job and you take all day and you slow and I'm looking at you not do your job in a way that's competent. You know, you're too busy having a conversation with your co-worker. You're too busy on the phone, but the phone is a personal conversation. Or you're talking to a co-worker, but what you're talking about has nothing to do with the job per se. You're discussing what you did over the weekend, but it's an earshot where I can hear what you're saying. But you got a whole room of people sitting and waiting. They had to take a number. And you know, you're on number 24, but you got 75 people waiting, but your production is slow because you're too busy entertaining each other with conversation, and the people that are waiting can't get upset because, you know, if a citizen appears to be aggressive, or I don't want to say irate, but you know, irritated is another word. You know, like if I want to know what is taking you so long, and then you tell me I just have to wait my turn, but then you turn around and you go back to talking to the person that you work with, and you're talking about the weekend, I'm not going to be pleased with that. And then you're on federal time, which is my time, because people pay taxes. I don't care if it's sales, use tax, whatever, any kind of tax. As long as you pay taxes, these people should not have the right to do what they're doing. Just like, say, the U.S. Postal Service. You got people that deliver mail. I see some people that deliver mail, they'd be too busy running their mouth with people that they know that's on their route instead of just delivering the mail. Or sometimes making pit stops and stuff instead of just staying on trail with their route. You know, people are always doing something extra that they don't need to do, and it's interfering with their work. And then they have attitudes because you're asking them, well, why isn't this happening this way? Or why isn't that happening that way? You merely asking a simple question, they can refuse you service. And it's nothing you can do about it. You know, so my message to people that work in various industries, whether you work in a store, you one of them people that take forever to ring up one person's merchandise, and you taking your dear sweet time. People have lunch breaks. Some people shop on lunch breaks. Um, some people that are elderly and they sick, they can't stand forever. But you just taking your time running your mouth, or you take a break in the middle of something, or you too busy yapping it off, talking on your phone, having a personal conversation, or you talking to somebody else. If you have that type of mentality, when you reach my place of expertise, I'm going to give back to you what you give to me. If you take your time and you operate in a slow way, I want to take my time and operate in a slow way, and I'm going to make you wait. I'm not going to rush for you. I'm going to let you feel what you displayed to someone else, because my philosophy is, if you treat people a certain way, you're showing them how you want to be treated. So if you take your time, you're inconsiderate of patrons or citizens that come into your place of employment, then don't come where I operate at and expect me to get you in and out. Or you expect perfection, but you're not showing any type of perfection in your field of service at all. You're not even showing decency in how you do whatever it is that you do. And if you act like you want to have a problem, I have no problem snatching my cape off of you and telling you, what? I'd be more than happy to direct you to another place where you can go and get that taken care of. Because I can refuse you service too. And if you're in a field where you can place value on something, I can do that too. I can determine the value of what I'm offering based on whatever your profession is. If I feel that you make a certain bracket, I feel you should pay more. You may not think that's fair, but I don't think a lot of things is fair in your profession either. But anyway, I just wanted to review this book. I know I kind of got off topic a little bit. This Privacy Act that they have is a joke. They might as well wipe this off the face of the earth, because there's no such thing as privacy. You get on the internet, just like I'm on YouTube right now. YouTube is part of Facebook, part of Google, Instagram, Twitter. They're all working with federal government agencies, known and unknown entities affiliated with them. They're working with state agencies, departments you don't even know exist. City, county agencies, again, different departments you don't even know exist. Face recognition software. They're putting you in databases, your names, your screen names, your phone numbers. A lot of these sites and apps, they want to know what your full name, your birth name, your real name is. Why? I'm not applying for a job with you. Why do I have to tell you what my full name is? What's your full name? A lot of these same agencies that want all your information will never tell you who they are. If you call, they might give you an ID number. That ID can go to anybody. You turn around and call that same agency later, they say no such ID exists. Person give you a name. Again, you call that agency again, they say, well, we have more than one person with that name. Well, what's the last name? Why is it that you're required to give your full name, your date of birth, in some cases your address, your phone number, your email address? And it can't be a P.O. box. But everything that they give you is a P.O. box and customer service or a general department, no specific person. That's the type of stuff I don't agree with. So I would urge anybody, whenever you are doing business with a business, mark down your date and time that you called, You talk to a person, write their name down. I suggest if you call a business, and it's a business that is known to record, they say that we are recording or we document all conversations for training reasons, which is a lie. Because if you call and complain and say, okay, well, I talked with so and so, or I called such a date, such a time, and this happened, and they claim that they keep a recording of certain things, they will conveniently disappear that recording and say it doesn't exist. But yet, if you have a disagreement and they feel threatened, they can turn around and find that recording and they can give it to a judge. Another thing to be aware of is a lot of agencies, federal, city, state, county, even schools, they believe in one-way recording, meaning they record, even prisons do this, they re-record videos, but they omit audio, and they do this deliberately. Why? Because if you heard a conversation both ways between a citizen and the government employee, government office, whatever, there's a lot of misconduct with government employees because they have so many protections that allow them to be corrupt. You know, they can threaten you, but you can't threaten them. If you threaten them, it's a felony. They can threaten you, and they're immune because they're operating on behalf of the state or the federal government. So they're protected from any abuse. They're protected from giving you false information. They can tamper with evidence, everything. And it's all justified. It's not justified. It's really, they can really commit felonies. But your state legislators and Congress persons that you elect that's supposed to speak on your behalf and work on your behalf, that's supposed to be for the betterment of your behalf, which is not. It's all about, they're all about themselves. They put laws, they put loopholes, clauses in place that makes them immune from prosecution, indemnifies them from any accountability, even when it's clear that they're wrong. Even when it's clear that they're wrong. Because they're doing everything in the interest of the state. And the main interest is money. So as long as the state is making money from them, they don't give a damn what they do to you, what you suffer. You can lose your life. They don't give a damn. That's the problem right there. They don't care. So just look at it this way. We're dealing with a system where detaining people unjustly was legal. Slavery was legal at one time. Treating a person because of the skin of their color was legal one time. Do you really want to trust people, an entity, government like that? Or most people that are in government now, a lot of them have inherited their positions. They come from generations of family members that have been judges, lawyers, prosecutors, or whatnot. A lot of them are descendants of the same people that have done harmful things to people that are melanated or Nubians. So that's something to think about. It's a lot of racist people. And all racist people are not Caucasian. So let's not get that wrong. You do have some Nubian people that are racist. You have some people from India, racist. You have some people from Middle East, racist. Everything that's racist isn't white, but a lot of them are, okay? So anyway, talking about retention and storage of medical records. It's a lie. They'll sit up there and say after 10, 20 years, the records are destroyed. No, it's not. It's on microfiche somewhere. Somebody has access to it. You know, a lot of hospital employees and their medical records department, they're lazy. I worked in a medical records department before Trust me, I know. They're lazy. A lot of stuff gets lost, misplaced, mishandled. Some of it is deliberate if they don't really feel like doing it. It's repetitious work. And a lot of people don't like reading a lot of paperwork or whatever. If they get bored or distressed, a lot of things can happen to your stuff. Come up reporting and disclosure requirements. And they can use your medical record in court. And I think that's a problem too, because court records are public records. And a lot of court records are fraudulent. I can prove that. And that's coming up in 2022. I'm currently involved in 2 court cases, one in which I'm kind of still being penalized for some things that I was accused of that never took place. And it's a big conspiracy. It's 2 people connected to judges, lawyers, and politicians and people who report the news, who all co-conspired together to kind of put me in a situation where my rights are restricted. But eventually, these restrictions are going to have to be lifted, and when they are, I'm posting it all on YouTube, audio, recordings, everything. I think people have a right to know what type of judges that they are going before in Cuyahoga County court systems. One particular judge in specifically is Michael Patrick Donnelly. He's now a Ohio Supreme Court judge, and it's a shame. It's a shame. It's got a lot of felons in Ohio Supreme Court for judges. And then you have common pleas judges too. Another judge of specific interest is Leslie Ann Celebreze, Diane M. Palos, John Russo. Boy, I tell you, they really, really have a corrupt system going on at the Justice Center. I remember in the mid 90s, I think. It was the early 90s. There was a police officer that I knew named Douglas Brown that worked at the impound unit at the Justice Center. Another guy, name is David something, can't remember his last name. He was a corrections officer that worked there. And I knew quite a few people that worked at the Justice Center that would share stories with me of corrupt things that would happen among their co-workers, but they couldn't really say or do anything against the establishment because they were outnumbered. People have lost their lives, speaking against, as they put it, the powers that be. I don't acknowledge them as that at all. I recognize them for what they are, criminals. I call them judicial criminals. Anytime that you are a public official and you work in the judicial system and you're committing felonies up under your position and abusing your authority, you are a judicial criminal. It's a name that I used to go by too because I had a site called Judicial Criminals. I am going to wind up getting it back up because, I think it's important to have a database of people, stories, pictures, recordings or whatnot of public officials, police, judges, lawyers, whatever, that commit crimes while they are on duty and even when they're off and they're not held accountable. I think it's important that laws that would specifically state how they committed felonies equally should be shared. I purchased some law books. So there are certain things I can state based on certain things that happen in court in my own cases, uh, that shouldn't have never happened, but did. I've been blackballed in court multiple times. I have no respect for rogue public officials. I'm not going to say I don't respect authority, but then again, let's define authority. Authority isn't someone that dictates what I can and can't do. When I think about authority as it pertains to the law, my ideal of that is someone who has taken a position to enforce laws equally and fairly across the board for Black people, white people, Asian people, Latino people. You know, not someone who says, okay, well, if a non-ethnic person commits a crime, we're going to be gentle, we're going to be trained in our behavior and how we detain this individual, no matter how violent or non-violent they are, but a person of color who can commit a same offense or alleged offense or no offense at all, just under suspicion of being a threat. They can lose their life. Many of them have. And those that have taken their lives have not been held accountable. For me, that's a problem. I don't view people like that as authoritative figures. I view people like that as criminals, and they should be treated like criminals in the law and outside of it. Is this a dangerous view? Absolutely not. It's a realistic one. If you commit a felony, even if you are a person who enforces the law, if you've broken the same laws that you're enforcing, they should throw your ass in jail. You should not get probation. You shouldn't get protective custody. You should be thrown in jail. If you kill a person that's unarmed and say, oh, I was threatened, or I felt threatened, or I thought. No. If you hurt a person because you were negligent, your ass should go to jail. No judge should sit up there and say, oh, well, no matter what we feel is justified. A judge like that should not be empowered. I don't comprehend people that really don't understand their rights. Rights in terms of, if you have a judge that has a high history of exonerating judicial killings as justified when it's clearly a homicide, when people can see that a person or persons wearing a badge overreacted, did so in malice, went in overkill on a situation that didn't require excessive force and they used it anyway, that judge should be thrown out on his or her ass. And when I say thrown, I mean, leave of their position, and they should be tried as a criminal, and they should be convicted as a felon and thrown in prison. It's interesting how people who are in the Department of Justice in any form, the judicial system in any form, they feel that they're above the law. They do special favors for each other, and they don't hold each other accountable. That shit needs to stop. But this is just my opinion. I don't respect rogue people. I don't look at them as authority at all. If you commit a felony while being a judge or being a cop, I'm going to look at you and address you as what you are, a felon. What's the difference between a criminal on the street and a police officer, a federal employee, badge or not, with a gun? When the trigger is pulled, they're both murderers. One isn't any better than the other. And oftentimes, those that are under the protection of the law because they work in law enforcement. They're killing people for the sake of killing people. And most times it's not justified. But anyway, I want to end this video. I know I'm kind of got off track of what I was really doing. Kind of yes, kind of no. But I'm just blown away looking at this book. You know, it's like, it's another one that talks about eugenic sterilization, voluntary sterilization, consent for sterilization, therapeutic sterilization. You have to understand, a lot of people that go up under vitro and fertilization treatments, how do you know that your doctor didn't sterilize you? You got people that are being given birth control pills or spermicides or whatnot. They know that this stuff is damaging to the body. You have so many women that have fibroids because of that nonsense. You know, their reproductive systems, they're having issues with it. Doctors are very, very well aware of the problems caused by a lot of the procedures that they perform in the medicines that they prescribe, but they're not being forthcoming about it. So again, this makes it kind of hard to respect them. And then let's talk about abortions. I will never understand how a person is willing to have an argument talking about freedom of choice. I believe you have a choice before you become pregnant. Now, don't get me wrong. I do comprehend you have cases of incest, rape, or whatnot. But either way, to have an abortion is the same as giving birth. You're still going to have to go through that pain. So whether you do an immediate procedure to rid yourself of something that you feel is a problem, or you carry a baby to full term, it would make more sense to just have the baby, even if you choose not to keep it, have the baby and give it up for adoption. Why kill a child that didn't ask to be here, regardless of how it got here? How are you any better as a person that will murder their own child versus that person that raped you and caused you to conceive that child? How are you any better? I believe one sin isn't better than the other. They're both sinful. And I think murder is worse. I wouldn't trust a person that would murder their children. I don't care if it's legalized murder or not. It's still wrong. But that's just my opinion. I understand. I overstand. Not everybody will agree. And it doesn't matter if a person does or doesn't. I'm just saying, it's not okay. In my view, it's not. It's not okay. You kill your child, I feel, if you don't respect the life, I don't feel your life should be respected, but that's my opinion. Moving right along. The same thing with a doctor too. If the state feels it's legitimate to kill a child, and then a doctor who does that can sleep good at night, that's a person you need to be concerned about, because they have no problem with killing something, especially a child. How is a person like that any different from an assassin? I don't see the difference. I think they're one and the same. It's no different than a person that murders a child that is outside of the womb. It's still a life. It's still a baby. It's still a soul. And you have people that will argue so many irrelevant things that just really makes no sense. Some of the most intelligent people will say some of the most idiotic things when it comes to this topic. The contraceptive pill, dumb idea. And then you got some people that will turn around and get pregnant, know that they don't want to be a parent, get an abortion, turn around, get pregnant again, get an abortion, turn around, God damn it, close your legs. And men, I would tell any male, if a woman is not good enough to have your last name, she's not good enough to lay with. Don't put yourself in a situation to become a father if you really are invested in a person, in a female. Let me see, genetic counseling and testing. They need to quit with that too, because, they will sell you a dream and it's really all about money. You got to be careful with prenatal testing, because that's some bull crap too. Here it's talking about they do this because they're checking for characteristics and disorders. But if they were really able to tell things, then why is it that when a child is born, half the stuff that's in this book where it's talking about Cooley's anemia, cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, hemophilia, Huntington's chorea, sickle cell anemia, Tay-Sachs disease. They do all this testing, and we'll put it this way, on a person of African descent, they would never hear half of this stuff. And if they do these tests, they would never tell us. They would never tell us. And if they find something, they're not going to tell us. They would allow us to continue and would monitor us to see how things progress in a worse, severe way, and wait until it's too late to do anything when they got all these so-called preventative care measures in place and test all this technology that we have. And there's no way that half the stuff that people develop later couldn't have been caught early. There's just no way. Racism is real, especially in healthcare and in the judicial system. Come on, wrongful life suits, wrongful conception and pregnancy suits, safe haven. Like, oh my gosh. I could tell part of this is a workbook. Uniform Determination of Death Act, withdrawing versus withholding treatment. Active euthanasia versus passive euthanasia. What I don't like about that is basically it is legalizing murder, allowing a person to die of starvation and thirst. But it talks about direct versus indirect killing, ordinary versus extraordinary means, right to die legislation, right to refuse treatment, stages of dying, palliative care, medical settlements, advanced directives, choices of life and death, mechanical heart recipient, the case of conjoined twins, the Hippocratic oath. They need to throw that shit out the window because it's not real. The Nuremberg Code, the Nurses Code of Ethics, American Nurses Association, they need to throw it out the window. It's garbage. Code of Ethics of the American Association of Medical Assistants, garbage. Human dignity, confidentiality, honor, continued study, responsibility for improved community. I think half of these organizations and the people that write these codes or whatnot, I think that they should be tried for crimes against humanity. Talk about a drug-free workplace. You got quite a few people that work in the medical industry that are drug addicts. Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, or COBRA, is an important act that covers a wide range of federal government financing for health insurance coverage, continuation after an employee has been laid off, whatever. Clinical laboratory improvement, what a joke. Health Maintenance Organization, HMO, what a joke. Pregnancy discrimination, age discrimination, Civil Rights Act, Rehabilitation Act, American with Disabilities Act, National Labor Relations Act. And a lot of this crap is outdated, and it doesn't apply to most people of color. It's a sad truth, a sad fact. It just does not apply to most of us. Let's see. Religious considerations, effective hiring practices. They need to throw that shit out the window because, there's a place called Menora Park. It's a nursing home, a Jewish nursing home. Now, it's interesting how if you were to secure employment there, you can't bring your own food. You can't leave the premises to eat. It's a Jewish Ashkenazi environment. You have to eat their food. But if they come to your place, work at your place, they expect their practices, their faith, their culture, their ways to be respected, but they don't have the same tolerance. So again, I'm a firm believer in if you don't afford me the same respect and freedom that you would expect, you're not going to get it from me either. Okay, now it's talking about gathering of evidence in cases of abuse. So I want to like substance abuse, spousal abuse, signs of abuse, older abuse. That is serious, a serious thing going on in nursing homes, hospitals, especially in state and county facilities. They are the worst places. And doctors abuse patients all the time. I've seen it with my own eyes, both as a patient and as an employee of a healthcare facility. Communicable diseases are more rampant in hospitals, spread by medical professions from patient to patient. A lot of times, even the equipment, if it's not cleaned properly. So anyway, I just wanted to go over this. Talk about managed care. It's a joke. They're talking about the importance of the legal system for the physician and the healthcare professional. Throw this shit in the garbage. A lot of these books on laws is a joke. So anyway, this is my review of the Medical Law and Ethics book. And they do have companion resources. This book is by Bonnie F. Frengen. It's spelled Fremgen. I highly recommend the book simply because it does contain some things that I read that surprised me. Like it says, the Good Samaritan laws. It says someone responding to an emergency situation is only required to act within the limits of the skill and training. For example, a nursing assistant is not expected or advised to perform advanced emergency treatment. It says even though a trained healthcare professionals are generally not under legal obligation to offer aid to an emergency victim, someone they believe they do have Some believe that they do have ethical obligations. Their personal ethics set the guidelines for care provided in emergency situations. See, that's some bullshit. Let me see. And it talks about endorsement, reciprocity, registration, examination, and some other stuff. I'm just saying, there's just certain things, bioethics, medical etiquette, the role of ethics committee, quality assurance program, the legal system. That's a mess within itself. So anyway, that's this book, the Medical Law and Ethics book. My review of the Oracle of the Goddess book and card set, and the game that I got for my son. Twilight Saga, the movie and board game. It's awesome. So I'm ending the live. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.